Welcome to the second episode of Wellness Wire Wednesday, the podcast that cuts through the noise to bring you the latest, most exciting, and sometimes the most revolutionary news in health and wellness. I'm Dr. Ray. I'll be your guide through this jungle, and we're here to do more than just read the headlines. We're here to challenge the assumptions. We're going to connect the dots and explore the incredible intelligence of the human body. So along with this research, I share my personal opinions, and it is for education. It's not to be considered medical advice. And today, we've got a fantastic lineup of research from the past week. And we're cracking open some of the myths about breakfast's most controversial food. We're diving into the medicine cabinet of Mother Nature to see what really works for depression. And we'll reveal the bedtime snack that could actually be a game changer for your metabolic health. But most importantly, we're going to tie it all together with a perspective that might just change how you think about your health forever. And that's going to be a really important aspect of this, and it's sort of going to be a common theme on all of these programs. So grab your coffee or maybe your tea or chamomile tea, and let's get wired for wellness. So first up, let's talk about breakfast. So for decades, the humble egg has been public enemy number one in the war on cholesterol. We've been told to eat the egg whites, skip the yolks, or just avoid eggs altogether. But what if that was all a big fat misunderstanding? Because a groundbreaking, world first study from the University of South Australia decided to sort of finally, let's settle the score. So researchers wanted to know what really raises that bad LDL cholesterol. By the way, we say that there's bad cholesterol, good cholesterol. The body's making it. It's there for a reason. That is such a misnomer, and I've done some videos on that. If you haven't seen it, you really want to take a look at that. But is it the cholesterol that we eat in foods like eggs, or is it the so-called saturated fat that often comes along for the ride? And by the way, if you know, I think that saturated fats have been tremendously maligned inappropriately, and I have a complete, I have some thoughts on that too. But we're going to go by what this research study says, and I'm going to take a look at it from my perspective. So they designed this study, and it was a good study. They had people eat a diet that was high in dietary cholesterol, and we're talking 2 eggs a day. But it was low in saturated fat, and the results, well, they're enough to make you want to whip up an omelet. And by the way, if you want to see any of these, let me see if I can put this up here. Impact of dietary cholesterol from eggs and saturated fat on LDL cholesterol levels. A randomized cross study. It was in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. But here's the thing. Not only did the eggs not raise bad cholesterol, but in the context of a low saturated fat diet, they were actually associated with a reduction in LDL cholesterol. But the study points its fingers at saturated fat as the driver of cholesterol elevation. But, let's dig a little bit deeper than that, because this is where things get really interesting. And it's a perfect example of why we need to think more critically. Because is it just the saturated fat, or is it the source of that fat? The foods that are often paired with eggs, when we take a look at bacon and sausage, they're not just, bags of saturated fat. They are highly processed products. They often contain preservatives, nitrates, and other industrialized chemicals that really create a burden on the body. And that's what I refer to, and I've done even just a few days ago, I did a podcast on foods by God versus foods by man. And here you have the egg, which is a food by God, and normally a meat would be a food by God, but in this case, when you're using bacon, sausage, they're putting all these chemicals, all these nitrates and different products in it. It's very highly processed, and it has become a food by man. So that's a world away from the kind of natural saturated fat that you might find in something, say, organic virgin coconut oil. So the real takeaway here might be even more profound than what those headlines suggest. So it's not about demonizing a single nutrient like saturated fat. It's about the food matrix. So you got the egg, a perfect whole food created by nature, gets a clean bill of health. So the highly processed man-made items that they often serve the egg with, now that's where the problem most likely lies, in my opinion. It's not the egg. It's the highly processed companion that it's forced to keep. And that, as you're going to see, is really a theme for today. So let's take a look at the second study. And this one here, let me just see if we can bring that up. And this one, understanding the research landscape of over-the-counter herbal products, dietary supplements, and medications, evaluated for depressive symptoms in adults, a scoping review. All right, so we're going to go from the physical heart, the LDL, cholesterol, to the heart of our emotions. And depression is an epidemic. And for many, many people, the path to feeling better is really a confusing maze of options, because you have a lot of different prescription medications, you have a ton of different over-the-counter products and herbal remedies. So this study was a massive review, and it was a Herculean task of sifting through evidence for. They looked at over 64 different over-the-counter products that had been marketed for helping depression. And the researchers analyzed over 200 different clinical trials. So what did they find when they did this? Well, a few of the well-known remedies had some pretty solid science behind it, like the St. John's wort, the beautiful spice saffron. They were found to often be as effective as prescription antidepressants. But get this, probiotics showed a significant ability to reduce depressive symptoms when they compared it to a placebo. And there are some other things like lavender and folic acid. They're definitely showing some emerging promise with this. But here's the kicker. For dozens of other popular supplements, the evidence was either mixed or really non-existent. And what's truly shocking is that some of the most commonly used herbal medicines that people have been taking for mood, like ginseng, ginkgo, they basically had zero clinical trials evaluating them for depression, which I found a little bit shocking, to tell you the truth. Now, here's where we like to look at things, though, from a different perspective on here on the Wellness Wire. The standard view is that depression is a malfunction. It's a chemical imbalance that we need to correct. But what if depression wasn't just a malfunction? Maybe it's not a malfunction at all. What if it's an intelligent, albeit a deeply painful signal? So what if it's the signal? Think about this. From the perspective of the body's innate intelligence, depression can be seen as an adaptive response. It's forcing the body to conserve energy. So when your body is dealing with, say, chronic inflammation, it's dealing with a gut microbiome that's in chaos, or you have some profound nutritional deficiencies, maybe that's hitting the emergency brake and saying, hey, you need to withdraw, sleep, stop expending energy so it can focus its resources on an underlying crisis that the body has. And when you look at it this way, the results of the study are sort of fascinating, because the remedies with the best evidence, the saffron, the St. John's wort, and especially the probiotics, they're not just numbing the brain. Saffron's a powerful anti-inflammatory. And then you take a look at the probiotics. They're directly targeting this gut-brain axis. That's the very place where inflammation and these imbalances are sending these distress signals to your brain. So they aren't just suppressing a symptom. When you're using these type of products, they're supporting the very systems that the body uses to heal itself. They're actually helping to resolve the underlying crisis, so that the they're getting to the root cause of depression in the first place. All right. Then you take a look at our third study. And then you're going to see there's a common theme on all this, because this third one, and this is the idea of supporting the body rather than just fighting symptoms, is going to be pretty profound. Because this one's about a simple swap that could have a profound impact on one of the biggest health threats that we face, and that is type 2 diabetes. So let's take a look at this study here. Nighttime pistachio consumption alters stool microbiota diversity. And they did this for 12 weeks, and they compared this was done at Penn State, and they looked at people with prediabetes. And by the way, you know, prediabetes, it's sort of that critical stage where it's very easy to turn this around. It's you don't have diabetes. Your body's showing some signs that it's not working properly, and it can really be turned around like this. And they had people do something really simple. For 12 weeks, instead of their usual carbohydrate consumption before bedtime, they ate a couple ounces of pistachios. You know what? I'm gonna take a pause for a second on that. Just when they say that, I want you to understand what they mean here. So people with diabetes, they say, take a carbohydrate snack before bed, so that during this long fast at night, your blood sugar doesn't crash down, so that you're going to keep some sugar in the body. Let me tell you, that whole thinking, there's some studies on this that have been pretty profound. And what they did was they took people that were type 2 diabetic that were actually on insulin, and they had one group, they took the same amount of calories over the day, and one group they broke this up into many, many small meals. And the idea was, and this is really when I went to school years ago, they said, you know, you want to keep the blood glucose level even, so you want many, many small meals per day. And they took another group of people, and they had them have 3 meals per day with no snacking. And what happened at the end of the study, the people who only had 3 meals per day, they did much better than the group that tried to keep it constant all day. In fact, at the end of this study, which is a pretty long study, I can't remember exactly right now, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but at the end of that study, the people actually had to adjust, they were adjusting their insulin levels higher. They needed more insulin. The condition was getting worse. The people that had only 3 meals a day, many of them no longer needed insulin at the end of the study, and I believe all of them had to adjust it down. They actually did better, and the reason is, every time you take a food into your mouth, and particularly even more so with a carbohydrate-laden food, your body has to squirt, it has to make more insulin. So to make insulin, and that makes you become more insulin resistant. Right? So, but here's the thing with this study, and the results wasn't just about blood sugar. It was about a complete rewiring of their microbiome ecosystem. What they found was that eating pistachios dramatically changed the gut microbiome. They saw an increase in some of the beneficial bacteria like Roseburia, which are famous for producing butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid that's basically superfuel for your colon cells, and it's a really potent anti-inflammatory. And at the same time, levels of less desirable bacteria, ones that have been linked to compounds that can harm the heart, harm the kidneys, they all went down. So this is incredible. So we often view prediabetes and insulin resistance as a failure of the body. But again, let's apply our different perspective. What if insulin resistance is the body's intelligent protective response to metabolic stress? In other words, your cell's power plants, the mitochondria are struggling. Your body might wisely keep a little extra sugar in the blood to make sure the fuel is available. It's a short-term patch for a long-term challenge. But you need to correct those challenges. And what do the pistachios do? They aren't a drug that forces the blood sugar down. They're a food that's nourishing the system. they feed the good gut bacteria, which is reducing inflammation, which in turn helps the mitochondria actually function better, work better. They're fixing that underlying environment. They're empowering your body to heal itself. See, you're not fighting the symptom. You're resolving the reason for the symptom. So the pistachios, it's a snack that helps your body heal from the inside out. So what's the common thread here? Whether it be eggs to saffron to pistachios, we're seeing a powerful shift in understanding. It's a move away from fighting the body and a move towards cooperating with it. This is the core philosophy that we champion here. You know, that the body possesses this profound inborn intelligence and innate intelligence. And that a symptom, whether it's high cholesterol, depression, or insulin resistance, it's not a mistake. It's often an appropriate response to an abnormal condition. See, the body's smart. You have this innate intelligence in your body that knows exactly how to run your body. You have millions of reactions per second, every single second of your life, say, in your liver. But you have no idea what they are. You don't know whether you should increase these reactions, decrease them, stop them, start them, or anything else. Yet the intelligence of your body knows exactly how to run it. So, you know, you look at high blood pressure. And I did a podcast on this, the Helsinki Businessmen Study, which was a landmark trial that found that men whose high blood pressure was medicated, and when they forced down the blood pressure, the mortality rates actually went up in those men. So it was crazy. So the ones that they had the medication, they forced it down into a normal range, their mortality rates went up, and the people that they just left it alone, they had lower mortality rates. And people are saying, why? Because the high blood pressure may have been an intelligent adaptation. See, it's the body's way of, you know, pushing blood through narrower arteries or compensating for a kidney challenge. You raise the blood pressure. And when the medication, that just took away the body's coping mechanism without fixing the root cause. Here's the thing. You know, you have a resting heart rate, for instance. That's just not just your normal heart rate. You say, what if I'm running and it went up? Well, it should go up because you've changed the environment. You've changed the conditions. See, the studies that we just talked about today, they're all thrilling because they align perfectly with this paradigm that I'm talking about. They show us that by removing the real offenders, like chemical-laden foods by man, by providing natural compounds like saffron that quench inflammation, by nourishing our gut microbiome with foods like pistachios, we're working with our body's incredible wisdom. And see, we're not just silencing the alarm, we're helping put out the fire. And that's what food pharmacy does. You know, there's certain foods that are going to help a condition, there's foods that are going to harm a condition. You know, it's interesting here that the ones that actually harm it, and remember, your foods aren't just the macronutrients. They're not just the fats, the proteins, and the carbohydrates. They're all these. There's the bioflavonoids. They're the minerals, the vitamins, the essential fatty acids. It's all of that. And these are all signals for the body. And food pharmacy is able to see and put all these different challenges together and create a hyper-personalized, customized plan for that individual. And remember, eliminating some of the foods is typically more powerful than just eating the good, healthy foods. And the reason is if a food was great for that particular condition, but a person was allergic to that, then they can't eat it. So the ones that can harm are actually more powerful. So that's why I love what we're doing. That's why I come here and I talk about these things. So this week, I challenge you, look at your health through this new lens. You know, question the old simplistic roles. Get curious about the signals that your body's actually sending you. These are, they might not be signs of failure. They may be the messages that are invitations to, hey, let's dig deeper, Let's find the root cause. Your body's not your enemy. It's your greatest ally that you have. Our job is to learn how to speak its language. So that's all for this Wednesday's Wellness Wire. I want to thank you for tuning in. If this episode sparked something in you, please share it with someone you love. Remember, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Stay sharp, question everything, and I'll see you next week. And boom, we're unleashing a health revolution with food pharmacy and wellness technology. Until next time, be well and stay curious.